everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every person.
On May 3rd, 1919, in New York, Pete Seeger, the folk legend we know today, was born. Seeger's mother's name was Constance, and his father's was Charles. His parents were wealthy. Pete's father studied music at Harvard, while his mother was raised in Paris and taught at Juilliard. As a child, Seeger was the only one of the children to refuse to play an instrument. He was musically talented, but he wasn't very disciplined. One day, Seeger was given a ukulele, and he fell in love with it. Pete enjoyed making up stories and songs with his ukulele. At age 13, he was forced to take musical lessons. Pete was very inspired by Ernest Thompson Seton's books and his ideas. Some of his ideas were being a self-sufficient craftsman and the theory of communism, which ideally all people would be equal in a socio-economic status. Later on, Seeger went to Harvard, but he decided that college didn't interest him. Then he decided to travel across America. While he was on his journey, Pete recorded and collected traditional songs. He spent his first few months in New England painting watercolors of barns and houses. He traded his artwork for room and board at various places. A friend of Seeger's father, Alan Lomax, was organizing a collection of American folk songs for the Library of Congress. He hired Seeger as his assistant for $15 a week. In the March of 1940, Seeger met the singer Woody Guthrie. Pete left his job with Lomax to travel with Guthrie, driving across America and performing with him. Later, Seeger hitchhiked and rode the rails across the country on his own, performing along the way to pay the bills. In 1940, Seeger formed a highly political folk trio, the Almanac Singers, which recorded Union songs and anti-war anthems. The Almanac Singers toured the country, performed in Union halls for money, and recorded 3 albums. The Almanac Singers broke up when World War II began. In the June of 1942, Seeger was drafted into the Army. Pete found himself to be very confused because with his fellow soldiers, he'd sing songs both of war and of peace. In 1943, at age 21, he married Toshi. Her mother was from the United States of America, and she had been a slave owner. Toshi's father was of Japanese descent and was in exile. He was involved with dangerous work for the United States Army in World War II. After Pete and Toshi were wed, they had 3 children together. They decided to build their own house, which was a log cabin, using instructions from a public library, and they did, successfully. During 1948, Seeger then formed another group called the Weavers. During the McCarthy era, the Weavers were blacklisted, resulting in canceled concert dates and the loss of their recording contract with Decca Records.
Well, in the first place, the blacklisting was mainly if I wanted to get commercial jobs on radio or television or in nightclubs. But I didn't depend on them. I sang for schools and summer camps. And then the kids grew up, went to college, and I was invited to Oberlin College in 1953. They said, Pete, we don't know how much money you'll make, but I think we'll get at least 200 people when we pass the hat. We'll make your bus fare at least. So I went out to Oberlin, and sure enough, I made my bus fare. Well, next year I went back and sang for 500 people. Next year I went back and sang for 1,000 people. Pretty soon I was going from college to college to college. The blacklisters didn't know what to do.
In 1955, HUAC, House Committee on Un-American Activities, called Pete to testify. He refused to discuss his political views, citing the First Amendment and his political right to free speech. Later, Pete was tried in the contempt of Congress, convicted, and was sentenced to a year in jail, but remained free pending a decision by the Court of Appeals, which threw out the case 6 years later. In the midst of this controversy, Harold Leventhal, organized a Christmas concert reunion for the Weavers at Carnegie Hall, which was a sellout, but still the blacklistings continued. Seeger was even kept off most radio stations, television, and concert halls for 17 years. Seeger then signed with Columbia Records and went on a year-long tour performing. Internationally, Seeger was warmly welcomed. While in Russia, he even led a 1,000-person harmony, a rendition of the song Michael, Row Your Boat Ashore, performed in the English language. He also traveled the college campus circuit, played for the civil rights, peace, and labor movements. He appeared at rallies and benefits. Slowly, Pete began to turn his energies and focuses toward the environment, specifically cleaning up the Hudson, which was being polluted. Seeger came up with the idea of building a 106-foot-long, 100-ton recreation sailing sloop, using it to heighten awareness of the river's dilemma and to raise funds to combat its pollution. The name of the sloop is the Clearwater.
Well, again, the Clearwater was like planting a seed. A lot of people thought we were foolish. Oh, you're going to clean up a river with a sailboat. But we'd sail up and down the river taking the school children out. And in 3-hour sail, we'd teach them a little science. We'd say, have you heard of a chemical called PCB? The General Electric Corporation put it in the water, and now it's in the fish. And if you eat the fish, you get PCB. And there were lumps of this and that floating around the water along with the toilet paper. And we went down to Washington and said to senators, here's the budget. Here's how much goes for this. Here's how much goes for that. Here's how much goes to clean up the waters. A little sliver you can hardly see. Make that sliver bigger.
Today, Pete Seeger still does many things for people and the environment. The Clearwater is still running strong, informing younger generations about how important it is to keep the waters clear and the environment healthy. Pete's songs today still inspire many people and tell about how the world would be a better place without war, hatred, and pollution. By standing up for his rights and the rights of others, despite the blacklistings and lies, Pete Seeger took a stand in history.
I would like to see people realize that the good and the bad are all tangled up with each other. You have to laugh.
Pete Seeger is an excellent example of how hard work and determination can take you to unbelievable heights. He also demonstrates that you should take a stand for what you believe in, no matter what the consequences are.
Nobody can say for sure. I always say God only knows what the future is going to be. But he gave us brains. I'm sure he meant us to use them.
Sailing down my golden river, sun and water all my own. Yet I was never alone. Sun and water, old life givers, I'll have them where'er I roam. And I was not far